Hi and good evening from the Cockpit Theatre. My name's Bill Banks-Jones, Artistic Director of Tete and Programmer of Tete, the Opera Festival, which you are now attending. Huge welcome to you all. A couple of things to say before this video starts, three in fact. The first is that the artists in this festival, like everybody, have been over the most amazing roller coaster this year. We've been upside down and inside out, and none more than this company. We were talking about this a bit earlier with the core team of Tete, that we've spent 6 months going, is it happening, isn't it happening, how are we going to do it, how do we need to change it? And everybody's been through this process with us, and all credit to them. But I want to say that to you just so that as you watch this video you understand what you're seeing is what the artists felt they most cared about in their piece that they could do under current circumstances. There's a whole lot more to it that you might be able to see next year if you support them with a donation, which you can do by clicking on the link that will appear in your chat any second, which says easydonate.org/tales. So click on that and you can give the artists some support. We'll talk about that again a little bit later. And the third thing to say, which may sound a little odd in a broadcast performance but actually is really important right across the board for the festival, is just as we did a pilot performance with the Department for Culture, Media and Sport to reopen theatre, so now we're working with the Paul Hamlyn Foundation still on the reopening of theatre, and it will really help us to get the whole sector open if you reply to an email you'll get after this asking you a few questions about what you've just seen. But most importantly, without further ado, let us take a look at A Time of Empty Tales.
Imprisoned in my spirit, I long to escape this festering rush.
This festering rush.
As a serpent escapes his spirits, escape. In agony, I await a cure.
Doctor, arise at the door.
Fix me!
Love has me lost.
Love, 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 love. We are descending into love. Love, 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 love. We are descending into love, 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 love. We are descending into love, 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 love. We are descending into love, love.
I don't feel as hot.
A story's haunter. She haunts me. My sweet possession. I only saw her as lost. I only saw her as lost. She haunts me, sweet earthly siren who I love. You have replaced my God above. My God eclipsed and betrayed, I am enchanted and changed. Weaving misery like silk from the spider, she shrouds me in gleam of desire. I can only dream of her above. Thief of God, thief of love. Thief of God, thief of love. Risen like a ghost to unlock.
poisoned love will end thee. The world is burning. After you are gone, I pray for peace.
Enough to kill, enough to kill! I will leave.
So there you have a time of empty tales, and what lovely music that is. If you would like to support the artists to make more of that piece, because it's when it was first presented to me, there was a lot more than we ended up able to do, then please hit the link easydonate.org/tales, which I think might magically appear in the chat again. What I failed to say at the beginning of this is the way this is an interactive broadcast is we welcome questions or comments from the audience. If you'd like to type them into the chat, then I can pass them on to our artists, and let's welcome them in now. We've got on one Zoom the auteur and singer Georgia Barnes and Alex Ackhurst, who was the tenor in the bubble with her at the back of the stage. Hello, you two. And also Catherine Strong, who wrote the words. You with us, Catherine? Oh, maybe she'll. There you are! Hooray! No, well done, all of you. It's a really lovely thing. Georgia, let's start with you and just tell me the thing that you approached me with about a year ago. Where did you start out with this piece?
Well, it was very different to what you saw today. We were supposed to have six dancers as well as all of the singers on stage. We were supposed to have two extra cast members as well, because we wanted to do the characters exactly how they had been done in Thousand and One Nights, so kind of reflect that story. But it meant that we had to edit the libretto quite a lot and edit the score so that we could fit it around the COVID, what's the word? Restrictions, yeah. But yeah, we had dancers, we had more cast members. It was supposed to be written for harp instead of piano, and wind and brass as well. So yeah, completely different.
Yeah, I mean that you find some things out about your piece as well when this happens, don't you? That I think it was true of all of us. I mean, the audience will not see the back end that went into making these shows. Tiny though they may appear, the work that went in was enormous because we talked and talked and talked to each other all year almost about can we do this, can we do that, how's it got to change. But I think the thing that was really nice was the way everybody had to go, what is the bit I really care about in my piece, and what do I have to tease out, and what is the thing I really want to get across in the circumstances that we're in now. I might go to you, Catherine, and perhaps ask you a little bit about what that is and how this piece morphed from the Thousand and One Nights through what you originally intended into what you've just seen.
Sure. I mean, we managed to keep a lot of the original themes intact, which is pretty good, I think. But yeah, a lot of changes had to be made. The original obviously had more characters, everything that Georgia said, but we mostly just wanted to get across quite conceptual ideas anyway. So you have this frame tale. For people that know what A Thousand and One Nights is about, you have this frame tale about this king whose wife cheated on him. So as revenge, he takes a new wife every night and murders her every morning. Scheherazade basically offers herself to try and put an end to this, and her method of doing this is to tell him stories until he gets curious enough to just not kill her and wait for the rest of the story the next day. So that idea of a power dynamic in that kind of century, in that time, is really complex and layered because you have this idea of a woman in power using her stories to subtly change her oppression. But obviously, is that even real power? Is the woman in power limited to a woman who can survive in an oppressive patriarchal structure? So conceptually, we try to explore that through this idea of the lost one, this rather vague character who exists in her tales, because we needed that overarching oppressive structure to exist. Because obviously Scheherazade, she doesn't dismantle the patriarchy by any stretch. She probably glorifies it actually by wanting this serial killer in effect to retain his power and actually become loved despite everything. And a lot of the tales feature some very anti-feminist and racist themes. It's all quite a mess. So, you know, you have a situation where you want to show the women exploring her power in a patriarchal world, and we use the sage in the Duban tale, which is, you know, a king and the sage being a doctor, which is one of the tales she tells the king. I think we use this. We originally had kind of more tales in mind, but we use this tale because it felt appropriate with the COVID situation to discuss that idea of sickness and the powers of sickness as well. Medicines, poisons, all those
But
themes.
just rattle us through the story. That it would do no harm just to just tell us that basic tale.
That this within the actual 1001 Nights Tale.
Yeah.
Okay, so originally there was another character who is in the original script, the advisor. So you have a Duban, a king, who basically has a terrible skin condition, and I think it's leprosy, and he has an advisor, and a doctor basically comes and says, "Look, I can heal your condition." I have
And
this,
let's take everyone through the geography of that. Who was where?
the
So we
geography.
had yeah, the king was downstage, right, wasn't he? So he was nearest the camera on the right hand side, and the advisor was up in the middle.
Oh no, there's no
Well,
advisor in the COVID version.
oh, okay. So who was Alex? Who were you?
I was a rather interesting character. I was the friend. Whenever I say that, I do inverted commas because I don't think my character was particularly friendly. I don't know whether to explain the character or to let Catherine do it, really.
Well, let Catherine get on with the story, maybe then. Sorry,
So,
I'm interrupting and probably confusing everybody, but I think it's really nice to tell the story. We have some time, so it'd be interesting to hear.
yeah, I mean the original pre-COVID and pre-composition libretto should be up on like Nine Muses Opera and I think Tete a Tete website at some point. But
But if it's not, it can be. We can put it there.
cool. So that might be able to make things clearer than I can in 5 minutes. But um, the original story basically centers around Jeffrey's brain tale narrative. The lost one and the friend represents the woman trying to survive, exploring her in power, and you have the friend who is patriarchy disguised as something that is helpful to women, and basically she has to appease the patriarchy just like Scheherazade does in order to survive. And then you have the stage in the Duban, the king and the doctor in the back of the stage, Georgia and Alex. Oh no, not Georgia and the other Alex. That's confusing. And they basically complement the same power dynamic that the lost one and the friend have. You know, someone who's born into power structures, who has all the symbols of power around him, the king, and then just the person in service who can subtly get the other hand using his learned skills, like the doctor. And so the doctor offers the king a medicine that ultimately is into medicine and poisons him to dismantle that structure. And then that's a dream in the lost one's mind. And you don't really know what's dream and what's reality at times. And that's kind of the point because the original story, all the tales sink into each other. And we wanted to play on that a lot. And then you have the lost one and the friend. The lost one has been captured by the friend. And in order to basically escape, she tries to trick him, convince him that she's, you know, someone that he can love and she loves him, so that she can eventually convince him to get her to leave in that like sweet way that Scheherazade did, like slowly over like 10 years or whatever, over 1,000 nights. And so basically, not 1,000 years. So you have then the friend, due to his odd cultishness and his, no offense Alex, but fragile masculinity, feels so sort of disempowered by his reliance on his love for this new person, that he decides to kill her, which is a tale as old as time in patriarchy. So he decides to kill her, and luckily the lost one is warned of this by her dreams that at once both are her power but also kind of destroy her, just like Scheherazade's power is quite layered. So yeah, then she manages to poison him, to in a sense get rid of him using an overdose of medicine in the same way that the doctor murdered the king. And but then she is so addicted and consumed by her reliance now on this drug that she's been given, which is the medicine, a drug, that she can't resist basically just having like one more drop. And that sends her into another trance. Then she wakes up and it's cyclical and it's unsatisfying, hence the title Empty Tales, because it didn't dismantle patriarchy, it didn't actually solve any problems. And that's the feminist lens to it, is that you can't say the 1001 Nights are feminist, but you can see how it tries to explore that in that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a side of it that's the power of women, isn't it? Even if it's like not smashing through anything really. That's really helpful though, Catherine. It's really interesting to hear all that, because there is so much in it, and in a way you had a lot of the paraphernalia of storytelling that you could have used taken away from you, because particularly the use of space was so limited. We were staging it with 3 meters distancing for singers, so it looks in a way slightly odd, because you look like, I mean, we fought tooth and claw to perform for a live audience, which we did, but of course because there were that many of you and a little bit of movement, the audience had to be in the back rows only, so it was a sellout. It was a packed house, as you could hear in the applause, but you couldn't see anybody in the video, which is just a little bit peculiar. Georgia, was there anything else you wanted to say about what COVID did to the piece?
It was sort of a blessing and a virtue, and it was sort of a blessing and a bad thing at the same time. A curse, that's it. See, this is where the precious comes in. It was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I think actually stripping it back actually drew more attention to the story that we wanted to tell, which was really interesting. And we just had to find creative ways to work, really. I wasn't supposed to be singing in this. It was supposed to be someone else. But then we had the problem with everyone not being able to fit on stage with the 3 meter social distancing. So it was just sort of looking at the government guidelines that we were given, and then looking at test guidelines and seeing how we could find creative ways to make that work. For example, choosing people with the same household. There was one moment where I asked all of the cast, how many of you can play an instrument and how many of you live with a person that can play an instrument, to see if we could kind of big up the orchestration a bit. Yeah, it was just interesting. Also, the fact that we didn't really know that this would be possible until the 15th of August, actually, where we were finally granted permission to have theatres open again. How did you achieve the King's?
Oh, don't worry about that, Georgia. I'll feed them to you when the time comes. Don't interrupt yourself for the chat.
I think also it presented sometimes opportunities to work in different ways. So obviously Georgia and I had sat very close to each other because we're housemates, so we're in the same household. And in the show, I think originally the Lost One and the Friend probably would have been along from each other, next to each other, and a lot of the music has there are duet sections and things. But actually being further upstage, behind Olivia, gave quite a lot of opportunity to be this kind of, as Catherine was saying, this kind of patriarchal force that's kind of looming behind. Things like that, I think, presented an opportunity to be quite dramatic with the staging.
Yes, it made Olivia look very ganged up on. The question in the chat was, how did you achieve the king skin effect, which I know you wanted to talk about and was complicated by COVID, like everything.
So we managed to find a latex special effects makeup artist, which was really fun and really good so last minute before the show. But then we had the massive problem that wasn't quite thought about before, that they would have to be close contact workers. So we had this really interesting dilemma of how do we make someone look like they've got a facial skin rash, and then but they have to do it by themselves. So that was a really interesting, and I think a lot of people are doing that at the moment, sort of taking on as many roles as possible and trying to adapt. For example, people cutting their own hair during lockdown. Yeah.
But how did you do that? Did you do lessons on Zoom or watch a load of YouTube videos and get the gunk, or how did that actually work?
So we got a few YouTube videos, but we also got a friend of ours to send a tutorial to Alex White, who'd never touched a makeup brush in his life or latex, to do his own skin rash. So that was really fun. We had a kind of like a socially distanced latex party.
That doesn't sound as good as it did in your head.
No.
Yes. Well, you fed me a couple of more questions. One was about props and design. You wanted to tell us about the poison bottle in particular.
So we went to Greenwich Market as a way of looking for props, and we really wanted to find something that looked like a poison bottle. And then really, really randomly, we came across this, which is actually a turn of the century authentic poison bottle, which is very odd, but also quite concerning because we have no idea if anyone's died from this. But what's really interesting and what works quite nicely with the opera is the kind of inscription on the side. It says, "Who decrepit nightly takes, soundly sleeps and fit awakes."
Wow. Because that must have been quite a moment when you found that. Just got time for one last question, which I'll start with Catherine. It may end with Catherine, which was, the questions about the music and the impact you wanted to make. But I'm quite interested also in, Catherine, the impact you feel of the music on your words. Whether you wrote them and you handed it in and then it just happened, or was there a lot of toing and froing, and how did it feel having your words, having that done to them?
I mean, yeah, obviously, because it was such a drawn out and complicated process, it really happened in a series of stages. So when I was originally approached, George already had an aria, and I just rewrote the lyrics over the haunted aria. And so that's how it started. And that was all nice and easy. And then, so I wrote this libretto, long version, and I knew I'd probably have to cut it to make it friendly for a very short opera. So we ended up doing about 6 songs first. We just went through like the plot and where the song should be, what songs should definitely be there. And so wrote the lyrics for the actual songs themselves, and then wrote and recit around it, recitative. And because of COVID, some things, obviously a lot of things had to change. Georgia had to write some things, even last minute, like things kept having to change. And obviously some of the words had to be, most of the words had to be cut, and like a lot of ad-libs had to be made last minute, a lot of things had to change. So obviously it's not what I would consider the fully realized plot, but it's I think it's honestly the best we could have done. And I think songs, for example, like the love song, Love, 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 I think that comes across as satisfyingly manic, perhaps. But like a lot of songs I think come across in the way that I envisioned. Song of the Friend, I think, works really well. Haunted, I think Georgia did so much justice to lyrics that she could use, in the situation.
Yeah, no, it was what I liked as well was one could hear a lot more of the words in there than when I first came across it. Really, that seemed to grow as well, which is a really good thing. I think it's always great to be able to hear them. Anyway, I need to draw us to a close now. There's a couple of things to say. First, once more, we kept the ticket price this low so that you can now all show your appreciation via easydonate.org/tales. This will go straight to the artists to enable the full version to happen in due course. The other thing to say is you are very welcome, all our audience, to come back and watch this again. You might find your enjoyment of the pieces enhanced now we've talked through like that. And you've got 28 days to watch it again and get all your friends to buy tickets too. Anyway, thank you very much. It was a really interesting session, and good night, Catherine. Good night, Georgia. Good night, Alex.